What's up, guys? Welcome back to Taste Cup of Joe.
Yes, sir, and we're here to do the second installment of
Histories and Lore Game of Thrones.
Love that for Tay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Me too. Very excited to get into season 2, Histories and Lore. You know, season 1 definitely let us in on a lot of information, so I don't even know how there's any more information we don't know, but there is.
That's right. So I'm happy that we're doing these. You guys, seems like the first one got we had a great response from that, so you guys are loving them. So we gotta do them. Let us know down below in these comments though. There is, I guess there's 2 of them that have some major House of the Dragon spoilers.
Oh yeah.
So
let us know which.
Yeah, let us know.
What are we not supposed to watch them? Would I even get that they're spoilers? You know.
I feel like because we're about to watch House of Dragon, you might pick up that they are. You feel me? I don't know what spoilers they are, but I know in the show there was some spoilers too.
But of course I still didn't pick up.
Exactly.
But really, are they spoilers? They're not spoilers. They're meant to be shown in the show, and then you pick up on them later. You don't really consider them. I don't think they should be considered spoilers. When you're watching them, you're not thinking like, this is spoiling me for House of the Dragon. This is the original show. How am I being spoiled for a show that wasn't even out yet?
No, because it's the history, so... You don't know how it could spoil you because you haven't watched House of Dragon yet.
Exactly.
That's
that's the way it all started for everyone, though, when you think about it.
It's the books, really. Yeah.
There you go.
What? Okay, let's just get into Season 2, Histories and Lores, Game of Thrones. If you guys want to watch the full reaction to our Game of Thrones reactions, Avatar Last Airbender, we have The Last of Us coming. We have the House of Dragon coming as well.
And we have Hunter x Hunter coming.
Hunter x Hunter coming as well.
It's litty in this city.
Yeah, we have a lot of things coming on our Patreon and our YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't. And subscribe to our Patreon if you would like the full uncut reactions and early access to future content.
There you have it.
All right.
Let's get into this. Starting off with Robert's Rebellion. Season 2. Robert's Rebellion by Stannis.
My brother Robert Baratheon had raised the banners of Storm's End, our ancestral castle, against the mad King Aerys. Jon Arryn of the Vale and Eddard Stark of the North stood with him, and Hoster Tully of the Riverlands would join. But their lands were far from ours, and separated by the combined strength of the West, the Reach, and King's Landing itself. Even Robert's own lords were against him. It was the hardest choice I've ever made. My brother or my king. Blood or honour. Aerys ruled by right of all the laws in Westeros.
This is why Stannis was so...
Everyone knew the price of defiance.
He felt such a way about Robert.
Because he was going against the law.
The brother bows before the elder.
You'll see.
I followed Robert. Early in the war, Mace Tyrell's indecisive victory at Ashford cut Robert off from Storm's End. Instead of pursuing Robert and risking his record, Mace Tyrell turned east and laid siege to our home. His vast army and navy encircled us and prevented any resupply by land or sea. If a wagon tried to reach us, it was burnt. If a ship tried to land, it was sunk. We were locked in Storm's End to starve, but Robert commanded me to hold the castle no matter the cost. He could ill afford to lose his ancient seat, which had never fallen. While Robert smashed Rhaegar on the Trident, my men ate the dogs, because the horses had already been devoured.
Wow.
While the Lannisters sacked King's Landing, we ate the rats. If the smuggler Davos had not slipped through the Tyrell blockade with his onions, we'd have eaten our own dead. But I held the castle until Lord Eddard remembered us and marched to lift the siege. The Tyrells didn't even put up a fight. And Robert threw a feast to celebrate Lord Eddard's victory. I was sent to the Royal Island stronghold of Dragonstone to deal with Viserys and Daenerys, the last surviving Targaryen children. Before I arrived, however, they escaped across the narrow sea. Robert was furious. He stripped me of Storm's End and gave it to that prancing fool Renly, my younger brother. I could keep Dragonstone. Now Robert is dead, and a bastard pretender soils my throne while the realm fills with schemers and traitors. But the rightful king is coming for them all, and I will not stop until I have scoured this land clean of abomination.
Until you are stopped.
The Baratheons say, ours is the fury. I will show them. Fury burns.
Wow.
I feel him.
I
I
can
got
see
hell
why
are
he's...
thrown down.
Right?
And I'm being sent to freaking Dragonstone.
Like, I starved with my people in this castle. Yeah.
Yourself in Flea Bottom. In such a cesspool did House Seaworth have its glorious start. I got out as soon as I could, finding work on a
One of my
small
favorites.
ship. Soon, every port
So
on the
Davos.
Narrow Sea had a bounty on me, which they would collect if I didn't pay a percentage to the right people or pick the right tides. You know how to tell a good smuggler? When you talk to one, there's a head that talks back. I was very good. Davos of Flea Bottom had run with orphans and beggars, but Davos the smuggler was received by merchants and lords when nobody would catch them. Oddly, the only honest work came from pirates, like the notorious, bloodthirsty Salador Sam. An old friend. All he ever wanted was someone to buy his cargo quickly before the tide left, and sell it without telling where I got it. In time, I saved enough to buy a small plot of land and found a woman who was kind enough to overlook my trade. She gave me a son, Mathos. And we dreamt of the traders' circle around the Jade Sea, just one trip, and I could settle us and our family for life. Then some Stone Lord revolted against the Iron Throne. Wars are not as good for smugglers as you'd think. Every harbour fills with guards and inspectors, and the seas filled with blockades and pirates paid by each side to prey on the other. Though I had no love for the Mad King, I'd grown up around the power of King's Landing. I figured this Robert Baratheon would end the same as the other rebel lords, burnt to ash. But he didn't. The North, the Riverlands and the Vale joined him. And in the taverns, people drank to Robert's health openly. Brave fools, I thought. But I had a family who'd be left in the cold if I lost my head. When Mace Tyrell marched on Robert's home of Storm's End, I spied the end of the rebellion.
This is cool because he's my favorite character, but I never knew too much
about him.
And would not hold out for long. When it fell, Robert would be homeless, and his support would bleed away. This I knew from experience. Months later, Stannis was still holding the castle. Nobody cared. But on voyages, I had seen what famine does, and I thought of all those men in Storm's End.
Wow, he's a good dude.
Mourned and forgotten. No better than Flea Bottom.
So he went out his way to do it. Not even asked to.
And myself, that I'd get a high price for the onions and salt beef. In truth, I knew I'd be captured by the Tyrell galleys or drowned, but I was too stubborn. Later that night, in the dark, in a tiny boat with a black sail, I cursed myself and the moonlight as I waited for the tide to turn. When it did, the wind beat the sail so hard I ripped it down, fearing the Tyrell ships would hear. Luckily, they'd grown lax. With muffled oars alone, I steered my cargo through the treacherous currents and snarls of rock that give Shipwreck Bay its name. The waves carried me, soaked and near blind from sea water, through the mouth of the cavern beneath the castle. Then, Stannis Baratheon arrived. The siege had left him gaunt, but not weak, never
See,
weak.
people were saying how I was saying Stannis, but he says it like that.
Accepted my opinions with cool courtesy, betrayed no emotion, even as all wept. He doled out the food to his wife and each of his men before he ate himself, a portion no larger than any other. When he finally thanked me, I could see his mind had already returned to the castle's defense. His duty. After Aerys fell and Lord Stark lifted the siege, Stannis summoned me. For my salvation at Storm's End, I was to be granted a knighthood, a keep of my own, and my son taken into Stannis' personal service.
Wow.
Davos of Flea Bottom had become Sir Davos of House Seaworth, and his son would serve the king's own brother. But for my previous crimes as a smuggler, I was to have the fingertips of one hand taken off above the highest joint.
Oh my gosh.
Stannis held that I had flouted the laws of the land for years, and a good act does not wash out the bad. In one fell swoop, or 5, Stannis gave my son a future and my family a name that I could never have imagined, nor earned.
Stannis is so by the book.
I still keep the
Really
feeling
I saved your life, bro. Spare me.
to remind me what I was and what I owed to Stannis. For during my many years as a smuggler, I visited many ports, taverns and back alleys, and saw many things in this world, but never justice. Until Stannis.
That was dope.
Damn.
That was dope because I knew about that. I knew the relationship was close, but that explains it way better, you know?
Like, this is so much that we
Some
don't
great
get to
houses
see.
call us
Yeah.
upstarts.
It's like Bikini Bottom.
But the truth is that while the Starks and Lannisters fell to the Targaryens in defeat, House Tyrell rose. For thousands of years,
Literally
our
rose.
family served as loyal stewards to the kings of the Reach, until the last of their line unwisely burned to death, resisting the Targaryen invaders. To save the Reach from a similar fate, we yielded the castle of Highgarden to Aegon and his sisters. In gratitude, the Targaryens gave House Tyrell dominion over the Reach, and we became lords of the castle in which, for generations, we had served.
Wow.
Under the Targaryen dynasty, Westeros prospered. Gone were the petty wars of 7 kingdoms and the endless thirst for minor glories that drove them. The Westerlands enriched the realm. The North guarded it. And the Reach and Riverlands fed it. This harmony is what Robert Baratheon shattered with his rebellion against Aerys Targaryen.
Damn.
When the call to arms came, though, we did not want to answer. The Reach is a gentle land, and honestly, the Mad King was not much loved. But we owed peace and status to his family. My father, Mace Tyrell, called his banners and marched north to battle
That
the rogue
fool.
Stormlord Robert, who had already defeated 3 forces in a single day. And, at Ashford,
3 forces.
my father won.
Whoa, that's
Some
the
chasing
that's
my father
right.
for not pursuing Robert after the battle. We had cut him off.
He
from the
won that
Swords,
battle.
the
I didn't
seat of
think
his
Mace
power,
Tyrell like.
and he had fled north, within easy grasp of Lord Tywin Lannister, the Hand of Aerys, for 20 years. My father moved instead to lay siege to Robert's ancestral stronghold of Storm's End. The rose would strangle the stag as the lion pounced. So we waited. But the lion slumbered, and Robert slipped past the king's forces to join Ned Stark. We could have lifted the siege and deployed our armies north to aid the crown. We could have stormed the walls of the castle and made Robert homeless. But we had ample supplies, control of land and sea, and most of all, patience. Our siege would succeed, eventually, at little cost of life to us. If Robert prolonged the war with minor victories, our capture of Storm's End would hasten his downfall. And if Robert won the war, well, it would not do for him to find us in his halls with the bodies of his brother Stannis and his sworn men. When the lion finally showed his colours and purged King's Landing, we knew our cause was lost. My father chose the peaceful route and bent the knee to Robert, who heartily pardoned us. Strange, considering how we'd beaten him and starved his brother to the brink of death. We were to keep our lands, castle and title,
Yeah, that's strange.
but we knew that we would never be welcome at court. It didn't matter. The Reach was still the most fertile of the 7 kingdoms, and under our
So they
hand,
never got any consequences for.
every flower, even the rose,
That's
needs
interesting.
pruning. Then it grows strong.
Huh. Wow.
And then boom, she went and married somebody in Storm's End. Renly.
Yeah.
Crazy.
family.
At that point, they was trying to do anything to get on the throne.
Right.
Honor. Every Tully child learns our words, but I was a woman before I understood them. Years before, my father had taken to foster the son of a wartime friend, a minor lord on the Fingers. The boy had arrived at our castle
This
as
is a good
Peter
one.
Baelish. Due to his
Peter
homely
Baelish.
size, my brother soon named him Littlefinger.
Oh,
When I came
wow.
of age, Brandon Stark of Winterfell sought and won my hand. To my father, Brandon was heir to the north and a suitable match for a daughter of House Tully. To me, Brandon was wild and terrifying, never far from laughter or trouble. I loved him with all the fire of the
That's
first
so
passion.
weird.
Much I came to realize as Peter loved me. When Peter heard of my engagement, he challenged Brandon to a duel. Peter survived only because I begged Brandon not to kill him. I still thought of Peter.
Poor
as son.
Littlefinger.
Now, I wish I had let him die.
For sure, because
Only
he
days
betrayed
before my
you.
wedding,
Yeah.
when I thought to be happy forever, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen abducted Brandon's sister, Lyanna. Hot-blooded as always, Brandon immediately rode for King's Landing to demand justice, which the Mad King Aerys Targaryen gave him, in his own twisted fashion. The day the Raven arrived with the news of my Brandon's death, I locked myself in a room and refused to eat for days, until my father reminded me of my duty. I was to marry Eddard, Brandon's
Jeez.
younger brother.
Right? And she's
Yeah.
already
A
in
man
love with
whom
the
I had never
brother.
met, though of whom none spoke ill, or spoke anything at all. Our union would cement an alliance of the North, Vale, Stormlands, and Riverlands in rebellion against the Mad King.
Wow.
I was a Tully. I did my duty. We were married quickly, and were spared only one night before he had to return to the field. I spent the war by the windows waiting for a raven to hear if my son would grow up fatherless or at all. We
Robert.
knew the price of defeat. I scoured the kitchens and washing rooms for any and all gossip. Robert had won and crushed the Mad King. Robert had lost, but Jaime Lannister was now king. Robert had almost won, but the Mad King had become a dragon and burned King's Landing to
All the
ash.
freaking...
Right, stories.
Yeah.
I told myself the war would end soon and bring peace. Either a victory or the grave.
My boy Ned got her pregnant first time. One night. One night.
Robert won.
And he didn't
and
come to
my
play.
husband avenged his brother and mine. But when he came home to me, he could not meet my eyes.
Oh.
He had a baby.
I saw the reason
That's crazy.
by his side.
But why was she so mad? You literally had one night with this man. He's barely your husband at
And
that
under the
point.
strain of war,
He was just
any
with his
man,
brother.
no matter how honorable,
Yeah, but that's
may
the-
forsake
that's
his
the
vows for a night
rules
of
of how
war
it
that
works.
he
I
may
know.
never
I get it. It's
know.
the rules of marriage. I'd be a little upset too.
But
But
Ned
think,
Stark
you
was
literally
not
was just with his
built like
brother,
other men.
mad in love.
But not married.
His
though.
northern honor would not let him sequester his shame in some distant holdfast.
You see, he's supposed
He
to be the
brought this
honorable.
boy,
He is
this
honorable.
Jon
We love Ned.
Snow, home to raise with his true-born children.
I'm surprised he didn't tell his wife though. I might
My
have
children.
like told her the secret.
Yet even these bitter memories are sweet now. They are all I have left of my Ned. Our family is broken and scattered,
This is definitely
and our
after he
son
died.
must wage a war for the pieces. We need to go home. The Starks are of the north, and like the snows of winter when they come south, they
Winter.
melt away.
Oh. That's tough though. She felt like she did her duty and she got played for it, you know?
Yeah.
Because he came home with a different
Dark wings,
baby.
dark words. I was
Darkwing
the
Duck.
when the Raven came to call my father.
Why is
Lord Eddard Stark,
Eddard
to end
not
the
speaking
war.
in this?
Eddar's dead.
I
Aegon
know. But he
Greyjoy
wasn't.
had raised the Iron Islands in revolt and burned the Lannister fleet at anchor. King Robert Baratheon again needed his old friend. My mother Catelyn was not happy to lose her lord husband to Robert again. 6 years before, he had left her to avenge his father and brother against the Mad King. But now he had sons and daughters of his own, and, unspoken, another son who wasn't hers from the last time he went to war. My brother, Jon Snow. But she knew that in marrying my father, she had married the North. We hold our honor and duty as dear as our own gods. When the time came, my father marched south to restore peace and order to the realm. My father always told me the Iron Islands were a strange and dangerous place. Its people, the Ironborn, keep neither the old gods nor the Seven, and despise all honest toil. Their ancestors ravaged the western shores, raping and slaving and putting it to the torch, and their songs still ring through the halls of the Ironborn, while everywhere else they are whispered to wayward children at bedtime. Perhaps Lord Balon thought Westeros had not healed from the war against the Mad King, and was as fragmented and suspicious as the ancient kingdoms his forebears had terrorized. Robert's navy corrected him at Fair Isle when they smashed the Proud Iron Fleet. Robert and my father corrected him at Pike, his own castle, when they pulled down his towers and breached his walls. My father never liked to speak of his battles, but from other men I learned what transpired. Thoros of Myr was first through the breach with his flaming sword. Not far behind him was Jorah Mormont of Bear Island, my father's bannerman who earned the knighthood he would later shame, and lords from every corner of the Seven Kingdoms. All day, through every passage in the castle, they fought side by side. My father with our ancestral sword Ice.
We need a show of this, yo.
Right.
Against a horde of axe-wielding...
The Warhammer.
In the end, Lord Balon bent the knee. King Robert generously allowed Lord Balon to retain his title and castle.
Yeah, way too generous, though.
The price of peace was custom. The only son of Balon's to survive his foolish rebellion would be taken as a hostage against future treasons. My father even volunteered to foster the boy himself.
What was the point, though?
I suspect to make Theon Greyjoy a different man than his father.
Wow.
Who would bring honor
That's the
and
best.
duty to the Iron Islands when he returned as heir.
But it comes off odd.
So my mother's silent fear came true, and my father returned with another child. Theon ate with us, played with us, and fought with us. Once the great bond between my father and Robert Baratheon united the realm against the Mad King and brought him to justice for his crimes. Now, another monster sits on the Iron Throne, and another debt of blood is owed my family. Theon is my murdered father's ward. I am my murdered father's son. Like my father and Robert, bound in blood, if not by blood, we are brothers.
Damn, I would love to read those chapters on Robb Stark. He had like a way with words, though. And like a sense of like history and knowing what he could do. Yeah, knowing what he could do for his future, you know, like.
At Harrenhal, the days when men feared the sight of our lone ships were over. Aegon would not commit wars and raids in his Seven Kingdoms. With Harren died our empire, and the old way that forged it. But what is dead may never die. 6 years after Robert Baratheon won his crown, my father, Balon Greyjoy, sought to restore our ancient rights. He declared the Iron Islands independent and himself its king, and sent the Iron Fleet in a daring raid on Lannisport where they burned the Lannister ships at anchor, making us unchallenged in the Sunset Sea. This was the seed of our undoing. My eldest brother Roderick led a frontal assault on Seaguard, a town built to protect the mainland from us. After ferocious fighting beneath the city walls, he was slain by Lord Jason Mallister and his men defeated. By this time, Stannis Baratheon had brought Robert's fleet around Westeros and somehow managed to trap the Iron Fleet at Fair Isle, smashing it. Robert's victory was now all but assured, yet we made him bleed for each island. Stannis Baratheon captured Great Wick, the largest of the Iron Islands, and Sir Barristan Selmy himself subdued Old Wick. Robert and Lord Eddard Stark led the main assault against the island of Pike. They razed the town of Lords
They really went the fuck off.
Right?
Turned his full fury on our family's stronghold.
Damn.
When they breached the walls, the first through was Thoros.
And all the famous names that took part of this battle.
Followed by
Everyone.
minor lord of Westeros hungry for glory. My other brother Maron was killed when the siege engines brought down a tower on his head. I was now my father's only living son, and heir to the Iron Islands. When my father saw his cause was lost, he wisely conceded defeat to Robert, who otherwise would have pulled down our castle stone by stone with us in it. As my father said to me then, no man has ever died from bending his knee. He who kneels may rise again, blade in hand. He who will not kneel stays dead, stiff legs and all. As it stands, Robert allowed my father to keep his lands and title as Lord of the Iron Islands, King of Salt and Rock, Son of the Sea Wind, Lord Reaper of
Oh
Power,
gosh, these names.
for a price. His last son and heir shipped off to Winterfell as an honoured guest. I would eat at the Stark's table and play with the Stark children. And if my father rebelled again, Lord Eddard Stark would take his sword.
He would never
cut
do
off
that.
my head.
Yeah, that's how he felt, you know?
Yeah.
That's such that he felt like that. Because it was more honorable than that. It was more important than that, you know?
Yeah,
But a child wouldn't see it that way.
of course.
Though Robert had risked all our lives to win it, the Iron Throne bored him.
And then he was just
He
boo
cared
on
little
it.
for justice and less for rule. If it weren't women or wineskin, he had no use for it. Without the stalwart John Arryn as Hand of the King, the challenge to Robert's crown would have come much earlier than it did. The Iron Islands have never lacked for treachery. They respect only strength, and honour is as foreign to them as the Seven. After 6 years, their ruler, Lord Balon Greyjoy, wagered that King Robert had not won the support of the great houses of Westeros, many of whom still named him usurper. Lord Balon declared the Iron Islands independent
That was so
and
stupid.
sent his Iron Fleet to Lannisport. Lord Tywin Lannister was careless, and the Ironborn caught and burnt his ships at anchor. Lord Balon and his reavers controlled the Sunset Sea. Robert then ordered me to succeed where his father-in-law, Lord Tywin, had failed. Beneath Robert's fury, I sensed relief. War he could understand. He would smash Lord Balon as he had Rhaegar. I raised Robert's fleet and sailed around Westeros.
That's all he
the
loved to
Iron
do,
Islands.
fight.
Right.
I set a trap for the Iron Fleet off Fair Isle. As sailors and warriors, the Ironborn are unparalleled. But they're not soldiers. They have no discipline, no strategy, no unity. In a battle, each man fights only for his own glory. And their longships are built for lightning strikes and shore raids. When the captains rushed in, I smashed their longships with our larger war galleys. The strength of the Ironborn is in their ships. With the Iron Fleet broken, I had assured Robert's victory.
Wow.
He could
Dennis
now
had a crazy
transport
military
troops and
mind.
siege
Yeah,
weapons
he
to
did.
invade the Iron Islands. And contrary to Balon's hopes, Robert had plenty of both.
He deserved
I've
that
never
throne.
seen such allegiance as Robert
They
could
played him.
inspire in war.
I feel like this makes me like Stannis' character way more.
I can see that for sure.
I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In rebelling against the
I mean,
Iron Throne,
I get, like,
Lord
I like,
Balon did
it
more
does
than
make me
Robert
like his
ever
character,
did to
but
save
he still
his
made
throne.
terrible judgment calls.
When
Yeah.
Robert came to the Iron Islands, he brought with him the full power of Westeros. Sir Barristan Selmy of the King's Guard led the assault on Old Wick, while I subdued Great Wick, the largest of the Iron Islands. But Robert saved the seat of House Greyjoy, Pike, for himself and Lord Eddard. Robert would later boast of the battle's bloodiness and how he could have torn down the island into the waves if Lord Balon hadn't bent the knee. But if I'd have led the assault, Balon's neck would have bent under a sword. Because I do not forget, I do not pardon. His time will come. All their times will come.
We would have been better off if he took that final island.
Probably.
We would never got betrayed by freaking Theon.
House Tyrell trace our descent to Garth Greenhand, the legendary first king of the Reach who made the land bloom. But so too does every noble house around us. It seems dear ancestor Garth planted as many flowers as he plucked. A king should have more consideration for his line, don't you think? For over 1,000 years, the Greenhand sons and grandsons ruled the Reach as House Gardener. The offshoots of his daughters grew into vast and powerful houses in their own right, except for House Tyrell. We chose instead to serve our Gardener cousins faithfully as stewards, to manage their stronghold of Highgarden and the daily affairs of the Reach. Our words are growing strong. And under our stewardship, the Reach did just that. As did we. Until a blundering king almost cost us everything. Aegon Targaryen had landed in Westeros. King Mern allied us with the Rock to repel the upstart's army. One can only marvel that King Mern did not reconsider when he saw the living dragons against him. Perhaps
I remember
he should
King
have sought
Mern from
counsel
part
his
one.
trusted stewards before he set out. Then again, perhaps he did. At the Field of Fire, Aegon, and let us not forget, his sisters, burnt the combined armies of the Reach and Rock. King Mern paid for his misjudgment with his life and that of his ancient family. In a day, the Reach had lost its king.
And that's why the Tyrells rose to power in the Reach.
Army. Thankfully for everyone, my ancestor, Harlan Tyrell, had better sense. Until the Maesters sorted out the intel among Mern's cousins, Harlan the Steward was acting Lord of Highgarden. To ensure peace and life in the Reach, he would yield the castle to Aegon. The other castles and families would then follow, as they had since the Dawn Age. Aegon had a continent to conquer, and the fertile Reach was too valuable to raise. He accepted Harlan's proposal and welcomed our lands into his kingdom. To show his gratitude, Aegon entitled Harlan to Highgarden, the castle his family had served for 1,000 years.
Crazy.
And made House Tyrell his wardens of the south, choosing us over older, greater families in the Reach. Our house thus owed everything to the Targaryens.
Strong and growing.
So
What's
is it
that's their
any
words,
wonder
right?
we stayed true to King Aerys, even during his madness, and even after Robert Baratheon rebelled.
So they're loyal.
Yeah.
Some may question my father for laying siege to the Baratheons' home
To a certain
instead
extent.
of marching
Yeah.
They were.
Right.
before Robert could kill him and scatter the royal army. But let us not forget that we had already dealt Robert his only defeat of the war at Ashford. If Lord Tywin Lannister had not vanquished the Mad King so suddenly, our siege would have destroyed Robert's home and his brothers and won the war for Aerys. But when the Targaryens fell, House Tyrell again chose peace and prosperity over war and devastation, and bent the knee to King Robert Baratheon, first of his name. We returned to Highgarden to manage the affairs of the Reach, as we had for thousands of years, and will for 1,000 more. Other
Yeah.
houses take lions and wolves.
That was
to their
short-lived.
cities,
Yeah.
and draw their power from the gold in their mountains or the cold of their winters.
But I like their castle. I feel
The
like
mountains
that's like a
run dry.
good place to live.
Winter yields to spring,
It's beautiful.
and the
Literally.
rose blooms once more.
Theon and Yara. Okay.
Where the north has its honor and the
Interesting,
south
'cause we
its
didn't meet
strength,
Yara till
the
later,
Iron
you know?
Islands has
Yeah.
its strength.
We call ourselves
I
the
think.
Ironborn, and we are warriors feared throughout the Seven Kingdoms.
Or so we used to be.
Oh no, we met them in season
Unlike their mainland cousins,
Two or
the
three.
first men of the Iron Islands never bowed to the old gods.
Theirs was the drowned god, who made the Ironborn to reave and sack and write their names in salt, steel, and song, that his enemy, the Storm God, could not wash away. We raised our kings from our own ranks, and used beaten foes as thralls to work our mines and farm our land.
Or as salt.
They were like
before it
Vikings.
was pretty
Yeah.
rough. Such was the old way, and while we followed it, we held sway wherever the waves were heard. When Aegon came demanding fealty, King Harren the Black ruled as far east as the Trident.
Other kings like the Starks could kneel, but Harren was Ironborn.
Harrenhal.
And the Ironborn must be beaten. In Harrenhal, he had the mightiest castle in Westeros.
So was Harrenhal a part of the Iron Islands?
But Aegon did not intend a
No.
siege. He mounted his dragon and roasted Harren and all his sons in their tower, and the old way with them.
That's why Harrenhal look a hot mess.
Because of Harren's defiance, Aegon pushed the
I remember
Ironborn
how
back
it
to
is
our
season
islands
2.
and gave the Riverlands to the Tullys. But he did allow the Ironborn to choose who would lead them.
House Greyjoy had always been one of the greatest houses of the Iron Islands. We trace our descent from the Age of Heroes and the legendary Grey King, who took a mermaid to wife and made war upon the Storm God for 1,000 years.
Blessed by the Drowned God, the Grey King fought and slew Naga, the great sea dragon, and took her fire for his own.
This history made our ancestor Vicon Greyjoy the natural choice to lead the Ironborn after Aegon's conquest. For 300 years, House Greyjoy ruled the Ironborn.
Damn.
We styled ourselves Lord of the Iron Islands, King of Salt and Rock, Son of the Sea Wind, Lord Reaper of Pike.
In truth, we were thralls. Our people still chanted, "What is dead may never die." But the old way had died.
Until the Targaryens followed their dragons into the grave, and our Lord Father, Balon Greyjoy, rose against the new king, Robert Baratheon. He seized our ancient crown and sent our Iron Fleet against the Lannisters at Lannisport, burning all their ships.
So like Robert's
before any could re-anchor.
rebellion really felt like anybody could be on the throne, you know?
Yeah.
After he won.
Yeah.
The Greyjoy sigil is the Kraken. What it grasps once, it will never surrender.
What is dead may never die, but rises again, harder and stronger.
It's crazy. There's so many different, like,
Beliefs.
in such a, like, in one kingdom. I guess that's normal, like, in the world when you think about it. But considering it's one kingdom.
Glory. Lies to make idiot boys want knighthood and idiot girls spread their
The
legs
Davos?
with.
No, this
Let me
is
tell
the
you what
Hound.
makes a knight.
Oh, that makes
Killing.
sense.
Either enough men or the right man. House Clegane should know. We're very good at both. Most families claim some great ancestors so far back that nobody can prove them liars. Not us. My grandfather kept the kennel for Lord Titus Lannister of Casterly Rock, the father of Lord Tywin. Lord Titus was a weak man who didn't know it. One day while hunting, he stumbled on a lioness. Instead of embracing the man who wore her on his banners, she tried to tear out his throat. Lucky my grandfather came up with the dogs and drove the big cat away. As a reward, the Cleganes got lands and a keep and a son to squire for the Lannisters. We took the 3 hounds who died for them as our new sigil. When Tywin Lannister became Lord of Casterly Rock, he wanted more from his former kennel master than fealty. He bet that training hounds to kill isn't far from training boys to kill.
Wow.
In just 2 generations, my brother Gregor and I proved him right. I gutted my first man at 12.
Yikes.
Years after, 7 started disappearing in our keep. And even a sister I don't remember. But nobody could prove anything against Gregor.
Damn,
Wow.
what?
They caught him at it. For my father wanted a knight in our
That's
family
crazy.
and thought he'd found one in Gregor, who at 13 towered over enough men that they called him the Mountain.
Wow.
Sure, Gregor looks quite
At
the champion
13?
from a distance,
That's crazy.
but a mountain can't cleave a man in half with one blow, and won't break a wench's face if she talks. Through Lord Tywin's influence, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen kindly anointed my brother personally. A great honor for our family, everyone said. 1 year later, Sir Gregor chivalrously sacked the prince's city, brained the prince's baby, and raped and murdered the prince's wife, winning our family yet more honor from the new
It's
king.
crazy because Rhaegar knighted him.
Soon
anointed
after,
him.
my father died. They say in a hunting accident.
Yeah, right. Damn, the mountain is
So
despicable.
he's just terrible, a terrible person.
Gain lands, gold, and anything under his roof. I left our home to take service at Casterly Rock. Lord Tywin is not like his father. Neither is King Joffrey. Or the likes of me would never be on the King's Guard with all those true knights. Between them, a man who serves the Lannisters will never lack for killing.
Ugh.
I'll guard this king,
This
such
clown.
as he is. Rhaegar will kill the other ones. such as he does. When we're done, we'll see how many people still believe in songs and fairy tales.
Yo, his story's lit. It's way more interesting. I'm so glad I'm watching these.
A long time ago,
The
they
mountain was
some old
crazy. Killed all his brothers.
enslaved our giants by magic.
He's a
He
crazy.
forced them to build your famous wall. Then he kicked all of my kind to the other side and raised an army to keep us there. And we're the uncivilized ones, wildlings.
Imagine that, though.
King was wise. Even a giant can be made to kneel, but only if he wants a better crack at your head. The free folk don't follow a man because his father tells us. If the king's son was brave and strong, aye, we'd follow him as we did his father. If he wasn't. But it seems to me, as much as the wall keeps us out and keeps you southerners in, you follow laws you didn't make. Kneel to kings you didn't choose and pray to gods you never hear from. And traders talk about your seven. And beyond the wall, the stars shine bright and clear. Any gods there aren't listening to the likes of men. Our gods are of the forest, in the trees that shelter us and the rivers that feed us. They gave the land for all of us to share. We fish, farm, and hunt where we will, when we need. If a man wants a woman, he has to prove he'll give her strong and cunning sons. That's easy. When she tries to slit his throat, he don't let her. With the free folk, you get what you can take, and you keep what you can hold. No more. I wonder, even if my kind didn't hop over your wall, would he still set your night's watch to guard it? You southerners are rich. You always have more steel, gold, and daughters. I think you're afraid. If you've always knelt, and you don't know what freedom is.
Just the fact that they built a
wall, you don't know what fear is. You will.
Wow.
White Walkers.
Yep.
I love how the symbol of daughters means you're rich. Or more for me, great, yes.
Good.
Swords in the darkness. Aye. The Black Brothers of the Night's Watch are that, at least. As too many of the free folk know. You southerners are strange. A man murders, and you train him to kill better. A man thieves or rapes, and you send him where it's dark and private. Well, at least you make him promise to be good.
Wow.
Well, then you make him
That's what they do with the Night's Watch.
From the time he's woken to the time he's allowed to sleep, he walks the frozen wall, carries frozen stones, or boils frozen food. When he lies down at night, he can't have nobody to warm his frozen bed. Well, not unless the crows like to nest together. Do you think he remembers the stories they told him then? About when the White Walkers woke in the land of always winter, and how the wall and the Night's Watch were raised to stop them the next time. Never mind trapping us on the other side.
It's crazy.
We free folk have our stories too. About how one of your king crows found something cold in the woods with bright blue eyes. How he brought her home through your wall and declared himself Night's King. 13 years he and his queen ruled over his brothers, making sacrifices as black as their cloaks. Lucky for you southerners, the free folk rallied to a king beyond the wall, as we will when need be, and marched from the ancient castle he'd taken for his own, the Night Fort.
What?
With the help of the Starks, we killed the demon and cleansed your precious watch.
Holy shit.
And then they thanked us and kicked us back across the wall.
That's crazy.
As you always have.
Like, how do you kick us across the wall, bro?
The Night had the Night King had a whole kingdom,
as a king beyond the wall, each
and a
promising
queen.
victory. And all fallen
And the
to
Starks
last
helped get rid of it.
Yeah, the Starks and the Wildlings
But
fought
this
together.
time
Yeah.
it's different. Our new king knows your tricks. You called him a brother crow once, but you never forgot his wings.
What?
We know how you think. We know where you're weak. Watch for us from your wall if you like. With the cold, you won't even feel the blade slip into your back.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, that I'm gonna need a little more clarification.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows why the Targaryens first came to the island of
The
Dragonstone.
Targaryens.
Old Valyria was then at the height of its power and the centre of the civilized world, which ended at the Narrow Sea. Westeros was a filthy backwater with 7 kings squabbling over borders and minor glories. So much for progress. The island itself was and is nothing. It had no gold or gems to lure Valyrian nobility. All it has is rock, mostly a shiny black stone, too brittle for war and too sharp for building. The Targaryens called it dragon glass. I call it useless.
Because you don't
But
know
the
anything.
Targaryens managed to raise a castle here. Simpletons claim they used ancient Valyrian sorcery, forgetting that the Targaryens brought a small army with them from Essos. There's no magic in strong backs, though admittedly the castle is unlike any in Westeros. Foreign and strange. If the Targaryens ever regretted their barren outpost and longed for the comforts of home, the Doom made their folly permanent. Valyria
What part of
collapsed
the
into
kingdom
waves
is
and was
Dragonstone
gone.
in?
To look east was to see the ruin of their homeland, the greatest civilization before
You don't
or
know.
I
since.
think it's closer to the
But
Reach.
to look west,
That's what I'm thinking.
as Aegon realized, was to see a fertile land ripe for conquest. Perhaps
with
even a
Baratheons
new
and stuff.
Valyria.
Storm's End?
Yeah.
Though good for little else, Dragonstone was the perfect staging point for Aegon's invasion of Westeros. The Blackwater Bay granted easy access to the continent. The lands there were disputed by 3 kingdoms, the Reach, the Iron Islands and the Stormlands. But their capitals were far enough away that none could mount a force before Aegon got a foothold, even if their kings had been able to stop bickering over whose problem he was. Then it was too late. Aegon had chosen his first camp well, with the bay to the east, the river to the south, and open fields to the north and west. His army would be impossible to take by surprise. A perfect site for an invasion, and one day, his capital city, King's Landing. The Doom had taught the Targaryens the prudence of refuge. After the conquest, Dragonstone became the seat of the crown prince and heir to the Iron Throne. It would serve them well, and me ill, 300 years later, after my brother Robert Baratheon rebelled against the Iron Throne and the Lannisters slaughtered the Mad King Aerys and his royal family. Robert dispatched me to deal with the last surviving Targaryen children. But before I arrived,
They were
a
gone.
royal knight smuggled them across the narrow sea to safety. Hatred for the Targaryens blinded Robert. Unjustly, I was blamed and stripped of our family's castle of Storm's End and given Dragonstone in its stead. Over the years, whenever I demanded my rights restored, Robert would remind me of the island's royal pedigree and pretend he was doing me honour, as if I were one of his tavern girls to be so easily deceived and
I feel like you would
deceased.
just naturally, I would
But
feel like
Robert is dead,
Stannis is
and
older
I,
than Robert.
Stannis Baratheon,
Yeah.
and the rightful
Gives
king
me the
of
older
Westeros.
brother vibe.
Let the usurpers
Not the
and
middle.
traitors sit on the Iron Throne. From Dragonstone, I will be the dagger of their throat.
He has a cool story though.
Yeah, he does.
One I feel like now watching this is one that I could really root for.
On the
He
shore
was really
of
dumb in
God's
the show though.
Eye, due north of the Isle of Faces, rises a monument to arrogance and cruelty.
Harrenhal.
For a people who prided themselves on their ships, the Iron Men of old seized any chance to leave them and carved out a vast kingdom from the peaceful river lords. The empire reached its zenith under King Harrenhal, called the Black by those he terrorized and by his own men, though they meant it proudly. King Harren enslaved the Riverlands to raise the mightiest fortress Westeros had ever seen. A castle that could garrison 1,000,000 men, with walls so vast that winters would come and go, and besieging armies grow old and grey before the castle fell. 5 towers he ordered, reaching into the heavens like grasping fingers, a monstrosity which he forced our people to build for their own subjugation. But the very day the slaves laid the last stone, Aegon Targaryen and his sisters arrived in the south. When they arrived with their small army, Harren laughed and shut the gates. Harrenhal would have its first test, and an easy one at that. It failed.
Damn. After all that, the first day.
An assault from all the armies in Westeros combined. But Harren learned that the tallest and thickest walls meant little to dragons.
Right.
For dragons fly.
Exactly.
With Harren and his sons dead, Harrenhal quickly surrendered to Aegon. House Tully then raised the River Lords in rebellion against the Iron Islands, and with Aegon we flushed the Iron Men to the sea. We should have torn down the castle stone by stone then, but Harrenhal seemed such a magnificent prize that Aegon gave it to one of his commanders, whose line then withered to extinction, as would every family to hold it thereafter.
Damn.
It's a cursed castle.
Basically.
When many speak of Harrenhal, their voices drop to whispers about Mad Lady Lothson, who was said to send a giant bat to collect children for her crock pots, and to bathe in blood and serve feasts of human flesh. About the ghosts of Black Harren and his sons who still walk the castle at night, all aflame. Of the servants who went to bed in full health and were found in the morning, burnt
oh my gosh.
to ash. Mere stories to frighten wayward children and excite young girls, you may say. You would not be entirely wrong. Harrenhal is a prize. A nigh impregnable castle with enough land and enough income to make a man, at a stroke, one of the greatest lords in Westeros. But you would not be entirely right either. Say by a king's grace, Harrenhal became yours. Now you must garrison it. You must repair it and maintain it. Even stretched to the ends of your means, you cannot fill and manage the whole castle. So you retreat your household to 4 of the 5 towers, then 3, then 2, then only the bottom thirds of those. You close the whole of 100 hearths and take your meals in your rooms. Even then you can't shake the feeling of desolation, that Harrenhal and its vastness is devouring you. In later years, as you bury a grandson or a great-grandson, the last of your line, you will know it has.
Sir
Jorah Mormont.
At its height, the Valyrian freehold ruled over half the known world. Not bad for former shepherds, but the doom fell on them and sank their capital into the sea. Now Volantis is the ember of old Valyria, ensuring its flame does not go out from this world, as any Volantine will tell you. And Toshi say the same about Pentos, Lysenes about Lys, and so on. But after enough time in the 9 free cities, it's hard to see them as anything but ashes of glory. Volantis is the oldest, the first colony of Valyria. After the Doom, the Volantines tried to rebuild the empire under their rule. They failed, not least because the last Valyrian with dragons, Aegon Targaryen, entered the war against them. Now they are content to dominate only their lower classes, or so they say. Bravos is the strangest, a city erected not by the freehold, but against it.
a labyrinth of illusion and deceit to hide the refugees from Valyria's slave lords. After the Doom, the city emerged from the shadows to become one of the greatest banking centers in the world. A man can get anything in Bravos, for a price. Especially death. Your own if you offend one of the swaggering swordsmen that pollute the city.
Oh.
Or, if you're very rich, or very desperate, anyone else's.
Yeah, I would like to learn more about Bravos.
Me too. I was just thinking like...
Full of pleasure houses catering to every taste, no matter how peculiar. Many
I think I'd want to live in a free city in this world.
At least alive. When a man runs out of coin, the Lycians may grant him their other speciality on the house. Poison.
Yikes.
Pentos is the most ruthless. The Magisters make a great show of choosing the Prince of Pentos from the great families and granting him the powers of trade, justice, and war, as long as he checks with them first. On the new year, to bring good fortune to Pentos, this prince must deflower the Maid of the Field and the Maid of the Seas. I confess I don't know how each is chosen, or what becomes of them after serving their purpose. But if a crop should fail or a war be lost, the Magisters will slit the prince's throat and choose another.
Damn, they got
The
no
other three
chill.
cities are known for what they make. Mia has its lenses and finery. Norvos, its axes. Quohor, its smiths who can reforge Valyrian steel. Tyrosh, its colors. I'm sure
Its
those-
colors?
We never learned none of this.
No, none of this.
Frankly, the 9 of them are more alike than they would care to admit. They hire the same soldiers to fight the same wars for the same rulers, the rich, be they called magisters, archons, or what have you. When a Dothraki Khalasar approaches, they gift the same tribute to avoid the same sacking. For thousands of years, the disgraced of Westeros have drained east to pool in the free cities, where a man of honor counts for less than nothing, unless it raises his price. Better men than I have learned that what a man sells for gold, he can never buy back. He must earn it by fire and blood.
Karth. This is where they tried Daenerys, right? I feel
Oh,
like
the one with the big
Carthage
walls.
to me
and
more.
only belonged to the Carthage.
Why?
I just
We
felt
were
like
never
I
part
was
of
dead
Valeria's
anymore.
empire.
Because you keep
Nor have
pushing.
we
No,
ever
I
fallen
didn't.
to
More
a
by.
Dothraki horde.
Hold the
Our
ground a little
walls
better.
And the red waste outside
I didn't know it was a
guard
tug
us
of
from
war.
such annoyance. Many call the approach to our city the Garden of Bones. It means little to
This is
me.
that dude that tried
Our
her.
city, however, would be quite a prize for any empire. Karth straddles two worlds, a greedy and curious west, and a rich and mysterious east. The marvels of Yeti and Ashai pass through our markets and share berths with the riches of the free cities and Westeros. Our ports have fulfilled many a trader's dreams, almost as many as they have broken. We call Karth the greatest city that ever was or will be. An easy claim to make if one knows only the docks and customs houses of other cities. An easy lie to swallow if a people see only the gold and jewels of their rulers, which we, the 13, who govern the city.
The
are careful to
13
ensure.
psychos.
That was over fast.
Carthene shook off the yoke of unjust kings long ago, so they are told at festivals by the pureborn, the king's direct descendants who have controlled the 13 ever since. Only now, instead of scepters,
When you see
they
this stuff
use
too, you
ships.
realize like Daenerys really
A merchant
freaking went on
only
a
remains
journey.
on the 13
to get to where
until
she's
the
at.
others are no longer afraid to deny him, or too afraid to deny his replacement. Except for the warlocks, they alone hold a hereditary seat, a relic from when they had powers, or at least from when the world was younger and more easily duped. Over the years, we have developed an understanding with them. They shall always be welcome on our councils and at affairs of state, provided they never come. Rare is the civic problem that can be solved by cryptic nonsense and shade of the evening. Thankfully, they need little encouragement to confine themselves to their House of the Undying. Yet perhaps we Carthene are too confined ourselves. We feel safe behind our walls and our laws, which no visitor can hope to follow, and by which any citizen who vouches for a guest always pays with his life. But like a ship in the summer seas, a city grows becalmed without fresh wind. The greatest city that ever was or will be, an epitaph.
An
I would
epitaph.
prefer
What does that
the
mean?
greatest city.
Isn't that like the phrase on a death, on a, like when you die? Like, is it a phrase on a tombstone or is it a phrase just...
The seven are gods of weakness and defeat. Pretty chains that the first men kindly put on after the Andals crushed them. Except in the Iron Islands. Since the Dawn Age, the Ironborn have followed the drowned god, who plucked
The
fire from the
drowned
sea
god.
and made us to reave and
That's
sack
something.
and carve our names in blood and song. When the Andals landed on the Iron Islands, they found a god who was father, warrior, and stranger.
I feel like
Who took
everybody
mother,
on the Iron
maiden,
Islands is
and
a
crone
guy,
in wood,
except for
and
Yara.
held the smith in thrall.
I feel you.
His priests are the drowned men, who are clothed and armed
That's
with the
mad
sea
true.
itself.
Like, I ain't
They
seen no other
consecrate us
girls.
to the drowned god through our most sacred rite, the drowning, and ask the god to raise us from the sea as he was, harder and stronger. The Ironborn do not fear the bloodiest battles or the roughest waves, for the drowned god taught us long ago that what is dead may never die. When an Ironborn falls, we say the drowned god needed a strong oarsman and took him below to feast in the god's watery halls,
Wow.
attended by
What a way to
mermaids.
look at it.
But even in death, an Ironborn is a warrior. We fight against the Storm God, who holds a castle in the clouds and sends the winds to lure the Ironborn off course or wreck our ships. It's said my legendary ancestor, the Grey King, waged war upon the Storm God for 1,000 years. With the Drowned God's help, he slew the great sea dragon Naga and used her bones for his haul. After his death, the Storm God tried to wash away any memory of this terrible foe, but his songs fill our halls to this day.
Damn.
It was the Storm God who first blew the Andals to the Iron Islands, to subdue us and turn us from our faith. True, they conquered and killed our king, but in time they forsook their septs for the shore, and their fat septons for the drowned men. The Andals came to us as conquerors. In the end, they drowned. The Ironborn are of the sea, as our God made us, and given to it as our God taught us. We do not fear the Storm God's winds or his waves, but you should, for they bring us to you.
Who?
Oh, the pyromancer.
Dragons conquered the Seven Kingdoms.
Okay.
But to rule them, the Targaryens needed a less temperamental tool. When the great King Maegor saw the power of the
Oh, dragon
alchemist
fire.
guild,
The
he
pi-
blessed
oh,
us
that's
with
the
this
old guy. They got
Yes.
the dragon.
In those days, we commonly
That's what's called, right?
transmuted
Dragon.
metals and other wonders. But the king was most interested in our mastery of the substance, which those not of our order dubbed
Wildfire. That's what it's called.
a slight misnomer. To the uninitiated, the substance indeed seems uncontrollable. Water will not extinguish it,
That's
nor
scary.
plate of steel repel it. Our order alone knows its secrets. In bare stone cells beneath the guild hall, our acolytes prepare the substance with utmost care.
That
for
would scare
ancient
me.
Magic. Apprentices then remove the jars to a secure storage. Overseeing its purity are the wisdoms, such as myself, who are adept in the alchemical mysteries. Should an acolyte prove unworthy and allow the substance to ignite, the ceilings are spelled to collapse and fill the room with sand. For once lit, only smothering or starvation will quench the fire.
Oof.
Many years did the Alchemist Guild serve the Targaryens faithfully, until we were beset on all sides by the envious, the Order of Maesters, who dismissed all learning but their own, and the charlatans who hopped green paint and worse in our names. After the
I like that
Aryan tragedian,
who halted all learning except their own.
Boasted that
Which you could see.
Yeah, especially when Tarly was there in Old Town.
We lost our royal favor.
Wow.
Then came the wise King Ares, the second of his name. I was merely an acolyte when he restored our guild to its former glory. As had his great forefathers, he appreciated our secret arts, even naming Wisdom Rossart as Hand of the King. Together, they punished his enemies as befits a true...
That's why he liked that fire.
During the War of the Usurper, I heard whispers that King Ares had engaged our greatest wisdoms for an ultimate weapon against his foe. But sadly, King's Landing must have fallen before it could be used, and many of our wisdoms disappeared in the sack of the city, victims of ignorance and envy, as ever, I'd wager. Yet our order perseveres, like the substance which grows ever more potent as it ages. We perfect our ancient arts in darkness, forgotten by the world. We are masters of the fire, but we live only to serve.
Damn, which is crazy.
Is the right term? Spark.
So they continue working on that the whole time. That's why Cersei's able to use it. That's why Tyrion was able to use it at the Battle of
The
Blackwater.
East is plagued with mystics who claim many dread powers but prove only one, separating the foolish from their purses. Not so with the renowned warlocks of Karth. They demand a much dearer coin in return for their parlor tricks. Respect.
What was it called? The place you lived? The House of Tricks, or no, that one area, you know,
the House of Illusion,
something like that.
They have many secrets. They are an old order, and one does not obtain a seat on the 13, the governing council of Karth, without making 12 of our most powerful citizens afraid to forbid it.
Wow.
Thankfully for Karth, the warlocks exert little influence in our politics. They rarely leave the confines of the House of the Undying.
Oh, that's
House of the Undying.
I admit, a strange and dark tower. It is said that none who enter ever leave. Of course,
except Daenerys.
Since there are no visible doors, I have to believe none ever enter either. We can only imagine what the warlocks do inside. I wager we do not have to imagine much. They read dusty scrolls detailing their lost glory. They sip shade of the evening, a foul concoction brewed from the nearby trees, until their lips turn blue, the better to frighten children and the ignorant. Stewing in their fantasies like an old soldier who drinks alone so no one may challenge their prowess. Whatever the warlocks may wish, their magic, like all magic, is dead in the world, if it ever existed. Though, one does hear strange whispers of late. Glass candles that have been cold for 100 years, now burning. Ghost grass, found far from the lands of the shadow.
Ghost grass.
A Kalasar led by a woman with 3 heads.
3 dragons, baby.
Trader's nonsense, most likely. But should the warlock's vaunted magic ever return, that would be a dangerous day for Karth. I shall need to keep my eyes on them. Indeed.
So he was planning on that already.
Valyria was not the first.
We just
so
did
that was season 2.
Sheesh.
A lot of information. This one had a bit more different, more variety of information.
Yes, where at the beginning I feel like it was, I mean, I think this is where things of course started changing in the show as well, where, you know, season 1 you're kind of getting more background, you're getting to learn about these different people, and season 2 was like, everybody's world was flipped upside down. Yeah, basically.
And it's, I like how there was characters that
aren't like the most popular, not the most popular ones,
like the Theons, the Stannises, you know, the Davos,
and the guy in Karth, like
the Pyromancer, you know what I'm saying, like people like that kind of, it makes sense why these are the stories that were told for season 2 because a lot of that was in season 2.
Yeah.
But my favorites in this part was the talk about the Night King, right? The Night King had
which I need to learn more about.
Right, like I'm like, where? Hopefully the next one has more about it, right? Because they talk about the king and
his
the
castle
night.
And his queen.
The queen, the castle, and the Starks went beyond and fought against the wildlings.
Like what? And then put him back out. How dare you?
Right.
They fought with the wildlings.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, also I like, the different opinions because it shows you from an outsider's point of view. Even though there still might be inside, but it's not like the direct, like say we heard it from, I don't know, Cersei. Like obviously you already know how that's going to go. But I do like it right now with these other, people who helped create the story in the show as well.
Yeah.
So that's good.
The Davos, like...
His story.
Yeah, smuggling the onions on his own
Still
accord,
get
right?
his fingertips cut off.
Yeah.
Stannis didn't play, though. It really just shows you who he is. Mm-hmm. He's like this.
Right. And even him saying, like, if had I taken the last island on the Ironborn Islands, if I had taken the last one, I would have killed Balon, right? And I kind of agree with him, like, why we let him live and take Theon? But I do commend Eddard Stark and Robert's attempt to keep, the Greyjoys in the balance, in the fray, in the whole. Cause he's
in play.
Yeah, because they honor the fact that these people have ruled these islands forever. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So like, let's still keep that history here and just teach Theon Greyjoy the new way.
Right.
And I feel like in Game of Thrones, like they touched on that a bit, right? But not to this extent.
Right.
And even hearing
no, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say even hearing Theon's perspective on like how he went to Winterfell with Ned Stark, it makes sense why he would rebel, right? It wasn't so much that he was trying to be a Greyjoy. I feel like it was more so like he always felt like he was a prisoner.
Exactly.
Low key.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like you took me as a hostage or a prisoner rather than to, maybe it'll help me in the long run, but that's not what it comes off to me. So I'm going back to kind of do what I should be doing. Also, I'm the heir to the Iron Islands, so that's probably where I should be as well. And that's who I want to fight for because that's going to be my spot. Yeah. Tough position Theon was put in, though. You hate him and then you realize, damn, you already know. Yeah. Hard thing he had to go through. Well, very interesting stuff, you guys. I'm very excited to see the rest.
Yeah, I need more of that Night King stuff.
I do too. The Night King stuff is the stuff that gets me the most confused every time. The Night King, the Children of the Forest, all that stuff. Yeah, even Bran, I need to learn more about this three-eyed raven. I feel like we've said already in the reactions, we know what he is, we know what he can do and all that, but we don't see it as much as I feel like we could, and we can learn so many cool, past events that we don't get to see from Bran.
Mm-hmm. Or, history of, the previous ravens, right? Three-eyed ravens. And,
right.
Or even just more flashbacks to us fighting the
rebellion.
No, the White Walkers. In that time that this showed. You know what I'm saying? Yep. I'd want to see something like that.
Maybe we'll learn more in another history and lore episode. Yeah. That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll see you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, stay tuned because we are finishing this for every season of lore and histories and lore.
Yes, sir. And House of the Dragons up next, y'all.
Up next, so it ain't ending here. It's gonna continue.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys.
Y'all. Peace.